Welcome back to the ITESOFT Insider View. This is week 5 of the 5-part series that we've put together. My name's Alan Brown. I'm going to be taking you through this week on what we're going to be covering. The subject that we're looking at overall is the top 5 things to understand about AP processing and matching. Week 1, we covered off how much time and money is spent on invoice matching. Week 2, about how you are currently matching your supplier invoices. Week 3 was delving into a little bit more specific detail on that, about do you need line item matching, excuse me, and why. And then last week we were talking about how many and what you do when you still receive non-PO invoices. This week, the final week or final session of the series. How are your supplier invoices handled for approvals? Well, isn't this an interesting one? Most organisations that I go into and speak with, they tend to be manually based still. They might have a little bit of automation in certain parts of their organisation, but from an AP point of view, it still tends to be pretty manual, in all honesty. And that was triggered as part of the discussion that we had in week 1, interestingly enough. So, here's a question for you to start the discussion off. Are your invoice discrepancy invoices being handled manually and being monitored on Excel? Because guess what? That's probably, I would say, 70% of where and how most organisations deal with it. The rest of them, bizarrely enough, are being dealt on a piece of paper. So someone will come in, they'll get their invoice in, they'll do their matching with it, they'll go, oh look, there's a discrepancy, or it's a non-PO invoice, they'll write it down on a piece of paper, or they will update an Excel spreadsheet depending, and this is all it comes down to from what I can gather, and it's finger in the air type rule in this case, the volume of invoices you're getting coming in that you're then processing. So, is it Excel or is it paper? Neither of these are really going to help from a digital perspective, but this is about what are you doing and how are you doing it. Once you've got that at least registered, so it's at least registered, and that's great because there are some organisations out there that don't even do that. How do you then send the invoice out into the business for approval? Is that, and we do have this, where individuals will walk it round the organisation. They will sometimes physically wait for that to be signed off. In a lot of cases, they'll put it down on someone's desk and then wait for them to deal with it in their own time. Most organisations at least have got to a level of digitalisation, but it's not a workflow and it's not really digital because they'll send an email out with that invoice that's been scanned in and attached to the email to go, here's the invoice, can you tell me what you're going to do with it? Or can you tell me, because it's a non-PO invoice, how you want me to code this, and are you happy to pay this? So it tends to be, as simple as that. A lot of organisations at a senior level within the company believe that is automation, that is workflow. No, that's not the case at all. But at least you know how it's happening, at least you know why you're doing it that way, at least you know where the problems are and the costs are associated for that. So for many of these organisations, digitalising this part of the AP process can, and does, when they actually do it, generate huge amounts of financial savings for them because, and it's not just in AP, but we can come on to that, but it's in the wider business. And part of that, for instance, is about, we've got an audit trail. We know who's got it, we know where it is. So if we come back to, have you put it out on an Excel spreadsheet or have you written it down on a piece of paper? Well, you only need to forget one time to put it down on either one of these and it's not accurate. You've now lost an invoice until hopefully your supplier phones you up and goes, what's happened to this invoice? It hasn't been paid yet. So having an audit trail from the time that the invoice comes in to the point that it's been paid means that you can report on it, So you've got high levels of visibility for that. But you can also then chase people for that. Now, this then brings me into another part of the benefit you get by putting the workflow capability in place. If you've got a proper level of workflow automation in place, why can't you, as part of that, put things like reminders in place? So when you're considering how your invoices are going to be handled for approval, especially the ones that are in discrepancy, and stepping outside of what your current process is, but looking at what would you say is a potentially perfect process or ideal process for you, it's important to look at certain things. How are they currently handled and why? Because you need to understand your workarounds in that. You need to be able to understand how many people touch it, potentially for how long. What flexibility do you get within this? Is there any levels of flexibility? What are the areas of risk that you have within that? And that's all within your current process. Now, you will already know for some of your existing invoices that are manually passed around the organisation, one of the areas of risk is it sits on someone's desk or in their drawer for usually a number of weeks until they've had the phone call from the supplier going, what's happened? We haven't been paid. And they go, AP, can you do me a favour? Can you rush this invoice through, please? Because I need the supplier to be paid really soon because actually I want to order again from them. So, being able to consider what you've got there and what the risk element is. And the risk element isn't always about someone's trying to steal money from the organisation, but it's what pressure does that put in the organisation to get that put through quickly has a huge impact, because it's now not just AP, it's also your financial accountants, it's also the sign-off team that are going to approve that payment. It has a snowball effect through that. Other areas that would need to that can result in this are to do with bottlenecks or the breakdown in the process, and that's not just to do with workarounds that are going on, but it can be to do with, well, how are you overloading other parts of the team that aren't aware of what's going on through the process? So let's go back to the example I just gave. You're about to make a payment run, and one of the business managers says, can I just really quickly push this invoice into that payment run? Well, what impact does that have for other people who are already usually under stress at that stage because of the financial process and structure that they're going through to make payments to other suppliers on time? So, what are other tools that you can use or that you can have to make it easy to use technology that gives you flexibility and gives you security as part of that process? And there are applications out there that provide an automated reminder, automated escalation to step back up the process, and ITESOFT has these workflow capabilities, these automated reminders, and the end-to-end audit trail as part of this functionality that we're looking at here to provide this. Because if we come back to the manual way that organisations are dealing with this, Excel and paper were the two examples I gave right at the very start. How do you then, from a paper or Excel spreadsheet, record, I've now gone back and reminded that person, I've now chased him 3 times? And at what point do you want to go, you know what, the policy we have in place is I should be going to his boss and asking him to deal with this because he's not there, or he might be out of the business. So, lots of things to cover. What I'd like to do now, let's just wrap up. Let's just go right back to the very beginning about why this all started. This is about the top 5 things that I would like you to be able to understand and take away with you from this session about AP processing and matching. The first one was how much time and money is spent on invoice matching. Really, really important for the business case. Dead easy. It's all about your data extraction and your validation. Simple as. It's as good as that. The second thing, how do you currently match your supplier invoices? And there was various questions that were thrown out as part of that. As a normal second stage or second step of invoice processing, Your ability to achieve high levels of straight-through processing is directly impacted by the quality and the quality of your data extraction and validation. We're back to the data. Everything's about the data. Session 3. Do you need line items? Why? So this is important. If the issue for yourselves internally is about reporting and trust, and the key one here is really about reporting, because you can then use that to build everything else, then you need to be able to look at this. Session 4. Why are you still receiving non-PO invoices? And there are other ways of being able to deal with this. I mentioned during that session, ITESOFT has supplier portal that will help with this side of things. And today, session 5, how are your supplier invoices handled for approvals or discrepancies? There are tools, there are technologies out there. ITESOFT has solutions built around this. This is workflows, and there are various different names for that, and there are different technologies out there for that. ITESOFT uses BPM technologies for that. Guys, thank you very much. I hope you found these sessions really enjoyable, and we will be bringing you more ITESOFT